So today I'm having a little My Little Pony moment because I'm doing my winter wrap up.
Winter wrap up.
And I did not own most of the books that I am going to talk about in this video. I'm going to talk about 26 books. These are the 3 that I currently have physical copies of. Most of them I got from the library, and then I do own 1 digital copy. To start off with, we're going to be talking about December, January, and February. So, starting in December, I read Magic for Liars in December. This one I did a video about because I got it from Barnes & Noble in their little blind date with a book thing, which I've noticed that libraries are starting to do that, which is so exciting. So maybe I'll do more blind dates with books. I think that'll be really fun. So yeah, I read Magic for Liars. Let me look at my review. Okay, so I gave it 5 stars. This book is about Ivy Gamble, who is a private investigator, and her sister works at this magical school, but she's estranged from her sister. And at that magical school, a murder takes place, and Ivy Gamble is hired to investigate it. So this is Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. This was just a lot of fun, a whole bunch of fun, and it was a really good mystery. I definitely recommend this book. I really loved the voice of the writing that Sarah Gailey does, and looking at Sarah Gailey's other works, it seems like there's a lot of thriller and horror stuff, and elements of that are definitely present in this. So this was really fun. The next book that I read is Lady Sophie's Christmas Wish by Grace Burrows, which I gave 2.75 stars, which is not to say that it's a bad book. It's just not what I wanted at the time. You know, it was pretty middling, I would say. I really wanted a Christmas book. I found this book because I went on my library app and I typed in Christmas, and this was one of the books that popped up, and I thought that would be fun, but it was not Christmassy. So basically, Lady Sophie Wyndham is staying at her family's manor over the holidays, and she just gets handed a baby. She's like out in public and a woman just hands her a baby and then abandons it. And so she has this baby, and this guy, Vim Charpentier, comes and helps her take care of the baby, and they get snowed in together. And that's the setup for this romance. And like, I just didn't care, and it wasn't Christmassy enough for me. So that's why I gave it that rating. The next book that I read, Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane, I believe. I gave this 4.5 stars. This book was so much fun. This is about Dev and Charlie. So Charlie is Prince Charming on this Bachelor-esque reality show, and Dev is a producer on the show. And so Charlie, he has some mental illnesses that make it really hard for him on the show, and he has a couple of meltdowns during production, and people think that he's a diva, including Dev, and they assign Dev to live with him and to help him be on the show, basically. And this book makes you really mad at some of the characters, but I think that it has really good character. Hi, Shadow. Has really good character arcs, character development, and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely romantic. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I really loved the reality show setting because it's like watching The Bachelor, but not with like the horrors of watching reality television. So next, I actually listened to the audiobook of The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I listened to this audiobook in like 1.5 days. It was so quick because it was, hi, there, because it was just really engaging and so much fun. And I love the old Hollywood setting. That's something that I've been really interested in for a long time, is old Hollywood. And this, I feel like, gives those vibes, the vibes that you're really there and what these actors and performers went through in Hollywood. And it was just really good. And so my girlfriend got me a copy of it because I really liked it. I gave it 5 stars. And I really want to reread it because I also think it'll be a totally different experience reading it physically versus listening to it. Next, I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I gave this 4.5 stars. This one is about Ava, who is a paranormal romance author, and she has chronic migraines, and she also has a daughter named... Okay, I didn't write down her daughter's name, but there's also this guy, Shane, who is this enigmatic literary author, and he shows up in New York and surprises Ava because they have a history where, like 15 years ago, they spent 7 days together in June. And they had this whirlwind romance, they were both teenagers, and now they're adults, and Shane did something that really broke Ava's heart. They are reconnecting, and it was really cute as a romance. I thought that they were very sexy. Yeah, it was darker than I expected it to be. It was definitely an emotional romance, and I really loved the depiction of chronic migraines and of Ava's daughter, and just they had an interesting story, and it did second chance romance justice, I think. It did a good job with that. Yeah, I think the only thing that I was a little bit disappointed by was that, you know, in second chance romance, I like when the characters do mess up and do things that they have to atone for, whereas this one, the like stakes were not as high. Like, they didn't have to really mend things. It was like a misunderstanding. So that was the only thing that I didn't like as much, but I think that it works for the story, and I liked the book a lot. So 4.5 stars. Next, I read One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I gave it four stars. I gave it 4 stars. This one is about August, who is new to New York City. I think she was like a southern Texas girly before, and she's on the subway to go to her school, and she meets this girl, Jane, and Jane is super cool and hot, and they start seeing each other every time that they're on the Q train together, or every time August is on the Q train, she sees Jane. But then she discovers that Jane is actually from the 1970s and has not aged. And so something's going on with the Q, and there's a romance going on. I just thought this was so cute. This reminded me of Me and My Girlfriend. There was like some hot sex scenes. This book uses a lot of contemporary language, so if that's something that you like, go for it. My problem with this book, I've heard some other people have problems with the representation in this book, the Asian representation in this book. I had a problem with some of the trans representation in this book. I really was happy to see a trans man main character, but I didn't like that August kind of clocked him. I thought that was kind of weird. And then I noticed that a lot of the time in these like queer spaces that August is going to, the backdrop trans people are used as a backdrop, and there's a lot of focus on trans people's body parts. So there's one part where August is going to this party, and it says that there are women with Adam's apples and men without, and I thought that was not the best, because it's using trans people as backdrop to make the scene more spicy, and it's just the focus on the body parts of trans people as like identifiers that they're trans is not nice to read about as a trans person. So those are my thoughts on One Last Stop. Overall, really good. Next, I read Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake by Alexis Hall, and I gave this one 3 stars. Rosalind Palmer is a bisexual single mom who feels that her last hope to give her daughter the life that she deserves is to go on Britain's most beloved baking show, and then cute romance shenanigans ensue there. So I really loved the Bake Off style reality show. Something about romances set at reality shows is really good. And then I loved how British they were. That was really fun to read. Something I didn't like was the writing style. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Yeah, some of Alexis Hall's stuff is really fun and good to read, but some of his writing quirks make it difficult to read them. Like, I don't know how to explain it. So sometimes he will put, like, the character will say, I wanted to say, and then in quotation marks will put like what the character wants to say, but that's not what the character actually says. And so I read kind of quickly and I kind of skip over those parts where it's like, I wanted to say this. And I just think a character said something wild and I'm like, huh? And I have to go back and read again. And I think it would be a lot easier to read if maybe he put them in italics. Like, I wanted to say, and then in italics what they wanted to say. But I'm not his editor, so I don't get a say in his books. But I gave it 3 stars. I read another physical book, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and I gave this one 5 stars. This one I started reading all the way back in November, and I finished reading it in January. Oh, oops. So Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake is the start of January. Now we're in January. So this took me like 45 days to finish, which is really long for me to finish a book. This is about 2 magicians who are trained from a young age to compete against one another. And then the night circus is the arena that they're competing in. And it's very slow paced. It takes a while to get into it. So once I was into it, I was really into it, and I loved the setting and the just descriptive prose, which is, you know, what this book is known for. But just all of the sensory details made me really feel like I wanted to visit the night circus and I wanted to be there with the characters. But yeah, basically you don't enter the night circus until like 50% into this book. So I was like, okay, when the fuck are we gonna get to the night circus? Like, where is this thing? For a good chunk of this book, but it was really good and it definitely picks up. Yeah, just good book. Next, I listened to Halloween Party by Agatha Christie, and I gave this 2.5 stars. So, concept of this book, Poirot investigates a murder that occurs at a Halloween party where a child is drowned in an apple bobbing bucket. So, pretty fucked up. But I just did not like this book. This book was bad. I'm sorry. I love an Agatha Christie, but this book was bad. It was written, I think, in like 1969, which was just a couple years before Agatha Christie passed away. And you can tell that she's getting older. You can tell that she's aging. And every other line is characters talking about how things aren't what they used to be. Things used to be this way, and now they're this way, and it's all fucked up. It just got so tired because it was every single character and it was every other line. And I was like, can we say something else? It's not like this is telling us anything about the characters because everyone is saying the same thing. And it was very distracting. Worst Agatha Christie I've read by far. I'm so sorry, Agatha. But she made up for it with the next book that I read from her, which was 450 from Paddington by Agatha Christie. I gave this one 5 stars. I love this one. So this is a Miss Marple mystery. Usually she's like really hit or miss, but this one was good. Basically, a woman sees a man strangling another woman in the train car that passes by while she's on the train. So the train cars are going like this, and she sees through the window that a man is strangling a woman. But no body is found, and no one is missing. So, oh my iPad. So Miss Marple has to step in and do some investigating. So I love a train. That's one thing about me. A train will get me there. I'll be in the seats there with it, with that train. And this book had so many delightful character interactions and just like cute little moments. I feel like Agatha Christie is good about putting those like cute moments into her books where you're like, this is kind of delightful, even though there's murder happening. Yeah. So 5 stars from me. I kind of want to own this book as well. So if anybody's looking for gift ideas, 450 from Paddington by Agatha Christie. Next, I read Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. I originally gave this 4.5 stars, but I'm bumping it up to 5 stars. This was a 5-star read, definitely. So this is about Yadriel, who is a trans teen who is determined to prove himself as a man to his traditional Latinx family. So he summons the ghost of his classmate who refuses to be released. So the way I explained it to my sibling was that he summons this ghost and he's like, you're dead? And the ghost is like, I'm dead? What? and just shenanigans ensue. It's really cute. It's set like a couple days from Dia de Muertos, and so I think it would be a great October read. It was like cozy, it was adventurous, and just an overall good read. And it meant a lot to see a trans man main character. This was the first book I've ever read with a trans man main character, and it's crazy how good it feels to see yourself represented in literature. It just feels really fun and good. Next, I read Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Rayburn. This was 3.5 stars for me. So this is about 4 retired assassins who go on a cruise together, but they realize while they're on the cruise that they are now the targets of the organization that they used to work for. So they must hunt down their assassins together. This one, I think if you liked Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix, then you'll probably like this one because the friendship vibes of the women is pretty similar, and like this book was fine. Moving on. The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton, which I gave 5 stars. This is about pirates who fly houses and they launch lighthearted assassination attempts against each other. There's a romance. It's a historical fantasy romance. And this I love the historical accuracy in the clothing. I was obsessed with that. Just really good. And you can tell what like era you're in based on the clothes that they're wearing, which is not common for a historical romance. And the cover has historically accurate clothing. This was phenomenal. I loved the whimsy. This book reminded me of Howl's Moving Castle, probably because of the moving castles. And this is another one that I want to own so bad. Oh, I also want to own Cemetery Boys. Yeah, The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels I need in my hand right now, and I need to reread it throughout time. I love this book. Next, I read The Body in the Library by Agatha Christie, which I gave 3 stars. Agatha kind of failed me again. So this is about Miss Marple, and a body is found in her friend's library. That's like it. It was fine, but not super compelling, and there were too many side characters who were not given enough time for us to know what their whole deal is. And so when the reveals started happening and they're like, oh, it's this one, you're like, who is this? I don't know who this is. I don't care who it is at this point. I just want to finish the audiobook. So that's how I felt about that one. Sorry, Agatha. Like, sorry, Miss Christie. I couldn't with this one. Next, I read Iron Widow by Shiran J. Zhao, which I'm hoping I'm pronouncing correctly. I give this one 5 stars. So this one is a sci-fi YA. This is about, there's like mech battles against the Hundans, which are these like also mechs. And girls are sacrificed in the battles almost every single time that this happens. And the main character, Zetienne, is only joining up to be one of these girls in order to kill the boy who murdered her sister, who is one of the pilots of the mechs. I just love this protagonist. I love a protagonist who refuses to take shit from anyone, and it does a really good job of recognizing YA tropes, not like making fun of them, just like using YA tropes, but then also subverting them and making it really interesting. A huge breath of fresh air in this book. They did a really good job with this. Next, I read Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. So this is the second in the Brown Sisters trilogy. I didn't write a star rating for this because I didn't really have a star rating. This is about Dani Brown, who only does hookups, and Zafir, who has a huge crush on her. They work in the same building, and he loves reading romances. He listens to romance audiobooks, just like me listening to this audiobook. So they accidentally become an internet sensation as a couple despite not dating, and they decide to fake date to help Zaf's rugby and feelings charity. Yeah, fake dating, like pretty much every romance novel is these days. And I just had no thoughts at the beginning, at the end of this book. I think I definitely liked it, but I think I liked it less than Chloe Brown, and it was good. So Next I read Carmilla. The lighting is changing. I'm gonna see if I can... I don't like that. I don't like that. I'm just gonna settle. I'm gonna settle. Okay. Next I read Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu, which is 4 stars. And just a classic lesbian vampire novel, short and to the point, just like this review of it. Next I read Sweet Hand by N.G. Peltier, which I gave 3 stars. This book was good, and it had some tropes that I liked, but I was getting really romanced out by this point, and I think that affected my star rating. So this is about Charisse, who is a baker, and her nemesis is Kieran, who is a musician. And so her sister marries, so Charisse's sister marries Kieran's best friend. So Charisse is the bridesmaid, or the maid of honor, and Kieran is the best man. And so they have to plan stuff for the wedding together, and they have to do little events together, and I love that. I love weddings, and I love wedding planning. Meow, meow. And they were cute. Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, which I gave 3 stars. Everyone on BookTube has lied to me about this book. It was not good. So, I mean, it was fine, but it was not like amazing. And like, okay, I'm just gonna start with the summary. So, the son of the President of the United States falls in love with the Prince of England. So, pretty cute idea. Cute, like, silly concept. It was just a cute, silly read, but it was too long. It was way too long. I didn't care about the emails. I'm sorry. I know that they're supposed to be really romantic, and I know everybody loves them, but I didn't care. Cut those down. And it was just so many words, and I was just, like, skimming by the end. I was like, can I please finish? I was, like, 2 days away from, like, the the ebook returning to my library automatically, so I was rushing, and there was just so much. And everybody lied. Everybody loved this book, and they don't like One Last Stop. And I think that you guys are just lesbophobic, because this one was not as good as One Last Stop. My next book was The League of Gentlewoman Witches by India Holton, which I gave 4.5 stars. I think this could have been 5 stars if I had more time, given myself more time to read it. So I had this checked out at the same time as Red, White, and Royal Blue, and so I also had like 1 day left on this one, so I was just rushing, doing my best, rushing. This was the sequel to the Wisteria Society. It follows Alex and introduces witches who, they're like, have the same origin as pirates, but they broke off, so they're like a different branch. This was also extremely fun, just like Wisteria Society. So I would like to reread this at some point, maybe after I get my copy of Wisteria Society and reread that one. Next, I read Cold Hearted Rake by Lisa Kleypas, which I gave 2.5 stars. This is the first book in the Ravenels series. This is about Kathleen, whose husband dies 3 days into their marriage, and his cousin Devin inherits the earldom and says that he will sell the estate, but is won over by the rest of the Ravenels and Kathleen. So I didn't care about Kathleen and Devin. I didn't care. And then at one point it became like someone else's romance book. Like half of it is somebody else, a different couple. But based on what happened between that second couple, I was so hooked, because the next like book title made me go, what? Well, how does that happen? And I read and I loved that one, and now I'm at the 4th book of the Ravenels series. So good intro to a series. It made me care about the side characters a lot and like want to see what happens to them. But this one, I didn't care about them. Yeah, the side characters I do care about. Next, I read Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, which I'm giving 1 to 1.5 stars, if I'm being generous. The romance was good, the smut was good. The reason I gave it 1 star. So this book is so cis white feminist, where the skinny white girl protagonist is like, I hate men except for this one tall muscular white man, #feminism, #girlboss, while oppressing minorities. If you like casual fat phobia and white feminism, you'll love this book. Is this really feminism? Right? Like, is like a white skinny cis girl going after this like tall, brooding, muscular man who's like also white. Is that feminism? And like he like carries her when she faints and like saves her from awkward social situations. Is this what we want for feminism? I don't know. Ali Hazelwood failed me. I gave not Love on the Brain. I gave The Love Hypothesis like 5 stars. Downgrade. It's a downgrade. I don't know, maybe if I reread The Love Hypothesis, I would have like the same problems, but this one just had just the fat phobia and the like, there was like a moment where I was like, this sounds so transphobic, and you just put cis in front of the word man to like have plausible deniability, and it sounds bad either way. It sounds really bad either way, and it just wasn't good. The romance was good, but the rest of it wasn't. Anyway, next, as for like a refresh, I read The Craft of Love by E.E. Ottoman, which I gave 4 stars. This is the ebook that I owned. This is about 2 craftspeople. One is a trans man, one is a cis woman, and they're falling in love and interacting with their crafts. It's historical. And I was really itching for a trans man historical romance, and this one delivered to me what I wanted. This did not speak to my personal fantasies for romance and like relationship goals, because I'm very much like a like marriage and like soulmates kind of person. But this was unique, and like the way that their relationship developed was very unique and intriguing. And the kind of relationship style that this book is about is also important in romance, and that can be romantic too. And so I really appreciated that, even though it's not personally my like ultimate fantasy. There was like a point where I was like feeling bad for Ben, because he wasn't getting what I wanted, but he was getting what he wanted. And so it's just like personal preference. Next, I read Horror Store by Grady Hendrix, which I gave 4 stars. And I wish that I had this book to show you, because it's so fun. It looks like an IKEA catalog. Like, it just looks like an IKEA catalog, and like you open it and it looks like an IKEA catalog inside. So this is basically a haunted house story, but set in like not IKEA. It's a place called Orsk. I loved reading this in public because I loved the idea of people passing by and seeing me just reading an IKEA catalog and being like, wow, he looks terrified of that IKEA catalog. Yeah, I at this point, with how many romances you just heard me talk about, I needed to change. I really needed to change it up from romance, and this was the ticket. This was really good. It's just creepy, spooky, and it was in that sweet spot where it's creepy and spooky, but it's not gonna keep me up at night, which I feel like Grady Hendrix does most of the time. So I've only read 2 Grady Hendrix books, but they both did this for me, so it was good. Next, I read The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie, which I gave 3.5 stars. This one is the first Hercule Poirot novel. So basically, this lady, Mrs. Inglethorpe, is a wealthy widow who remarried to a much younger man, Alfred Inglethorpe, and she is then poisoned alone in her bedroom with the doors bolted from the inside, and everybody thinks it's Alfred. Yeah, it was fine. Like, it was pretty good. This one had a good, it was the first mystery Agatha Christie ever wrote, which is kind of fun, and it had a good like balance of characters where I knew who each of the characters were, and I knew what their like alibis are and what their motivations are, and like why you can rule out certain characters, and that is really important to me in a mystery. That is really important to me in a mystery, and I appreciated that. So, next. This is the final book I read in winter in February. So, next I read A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall, which I gave 5 stars. This was just really good. It was another romance, a historical romance. I had it on hold for like 4 months, and I finally got to read it. So this is about Viola, that's how I pronounce it, Viola. So she faked her death at the Battle of Waterloo to be able to transition and live as a woman, and her best friend Gracewood is not doing well in grieving her death, so she's visiting him, and he doesn't know that he used to know her. he begins confiding in and falling for Viola. There's this like hidden / mistaken identity, and there's a lot of angst, and you're just the whole time you're reading it and you're like, when is the other shoe gonna drop? Like, when is he gonna like notice? Or like, when is he gonna find out? When is she gonna tell him? Like, it's like very tense. Like, it's full of tension and romantic tension, sexual tension, every kind of tension, dramatic tension, and it was really good. This is another trans historical romance, which I have been just craving, and I ate this right up, and it was really good. And I want Alexis Hall to write more historical romance, because this had fewer of the writing quirks that irk me with his writing, and I think it's because it was historical and he was doing a different style of prose from his contemporary works, and I just want more of this. More of this, please, Alexis Hall. So, those were the 26 books that I read. There were also a couple books that I started and DNF'd. Should I talk about those? I'm gonna talk about those. Let me look really quick. First book that I DNF'd in winter was Probable Clause by Rita Mae Brown and Sneaky Pie Brown, and this is a cozy mystery about, like, they're in some dang place, like the South, I think, and there is a murder that happens to this guy. There's like a masked motorcyclist, and he shoots him point blank in the street, or they shoot him because they don't know if it's a man or a woman or just a person. It's supposed to be a cozy mystery. I didn't find it cozy at all, and there's this weird plot line with, like, I don't know if it got better later on in the book. I think I got like 50 pages in before I stopped reading, but there's this plot line in the past, in like 1700s, where there's slaves, and it seems like it's falling into the like happy slave like trope, where like they're like, no, slavery wasn't that bad, like the slaves actually liked it, and that was just really bad, and I had to stop reading. I don't know if it like was trying to do that, but that was like the vibe that I got initially, and I just didn't want to continue, so I stopped and DNF'd that one. Next was Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, which is the first in the London Calling series. And this one, I think that like this one, I was getting the point of it, but I didn't want to continue. I didn't like the point. So I've seen other people review this book and they have like a similar thing to me, but they actually liked it because they kept reading it. So I just didn't like the main character. I thought that he was just an asshole, and just everything that I didn't like being in his head, and I think that's the point, that you don't like being in his head, and I think that he has like character growth later on, but it just didn't grab me. Like, if I don't like the protagonist, like if I don't at least, I don't know, sympathize with them, I can't really, I don't want to be in their head, and so I didn't like it. And especially because I'm like, this isn't like a like dark book where you're like, yeah, what's it like to be in this person's head, like it's so fucked up. Like, no, it's just supposed to be a romance, and I'm like, I don't root for this man in this romance. So I DNF'd it. Next, The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegmund Broca. So they're like a writing duo, and they're writing about a writing duo who are like used to be really close, and then they broke off their knowing each other. And this book wanted to be like literary. It wanted to be literary and pretentious and intelligent, but I think that the authors were just not those things. And that sounds so mean, but like they're using this writing style that like tells me that they want me to think that they're really smart, but they like had so many writing mistakes that I was like, okay, like you're not convincing me, and you're just making it like annoying to read. These characters too were super unlikable, and I did not want to be in their heads, and I was like, why are you even fighting? Like, get over it. So this did not grab me. Next, I DNF'd The Martian. Martian by Andy Weir. So this is a series? Apparently this is a series. So I didn't have any like huge problems with this. I thought that it was like okay to read, but I was really anxious at this time. I was going through some like medical things that made me I have a lot of anxiety. The fact that he was going through so much stressful shit while I was going through stressful shit, I was like, I don't need this in my life right now. And also, for some reason in high school, I read the script to the movie of this, and so I'm like, I know what happens. So I stopped reading. So those were all the books that I at least attempted to read in winter. Did you hear my shoulder crack? I had a lot of fun reading. I read a lot this winter and I'm proud of myself, and I'm hoping to keep it up and read more and DNF more, because like some of those books that were like 2.5, 2 point whatever, like I don't need to finish that. Same with Love on the Brain. I didn't need to finish it. I didn't like it. So I'm gonna DNF more and I'm gonna read more. Thank you for watching. Bye.